Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu. You are all welcomed in this place. My name is Steve. I will be your worship associate this morning. We are a free religious community inspired by shared principles and a mission boldly to grow compassion, justice, and joy. Today's thought from our covenant of right relations is to have the courage to call time out during meetings or conversations to restore right relations. Personally, I find it easy to call time out when you are being disagreeable. It's tough calling time out on myself when I am being disagreeable. Now, that takes courage. Let's practice that courage. Now, I have the very special privilege of welcoming our guest speaker today, the Reverend Nair Taheri. Many of you know Nair, Reverend Nair, already. She was going to be here with her family, with her whole family. This is the first family is home today, but they'll be here next time or other times or later. Many of you know her family as well. Nair's spouse is Navy Lieutenant Reverend Cynthia Kane. She's a UU chaplain in the Navy. And they have two sons, Asher Kane, 5 years old, and Ari Kane, 2 months old. UU babies. Oh, I'm disappointed. We don't get to see them this week, but this is the first of 5 sermons that Nair is going to do with us here within the next 3 months, scattered over the next 3 months. So we will meet the family soon. Let's welcome Nair. A word about Nair here. She originally is from Iran. She's an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister, trained at the Star King School for the Ministry in Berkeley. As a community minister, her specialty was pediatric palliative care. For the past 2 years, she has enjoyed supporting her military family while volunteering for nonprofit causes such as the one she herself created, the Pacific Fish Ministry. Nair simply catches fish because she loves to fish, and she prepares meals for families in need. Please help light the chalice. Hey, one of you guys like to light the chalice for us? Come on up here. What's your name?
Carl.
Carl. Please help Carl light the chalice with these words. We light this flame that represents the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action.
Morning. Morning. Katie and the children are away camping, and I was meeting with her a day or two ago, and she said, "Oh my God, I don't have anybody to do the story." And so in a weak moment, I said, "Okay, I'll do the story." So I invite all the children to come down front, all 3 of you. Just come right down here. Whoops. Or just fall in. That's a good plan. Good plan. All right. So, how many of you children have ever seen snow? 1, 2, 3. Have you ever seen snow? We don't know. Oh, there's more children than I thought. Come on down. Come on down. Well, we're going to tell a story today about a bear in the snow. And so this is mostly for the big kids, I think, sitting out there behind you who, shovel their driveway 4 feet of snow and then, did it again the next week. All right. So this is a story called A Retelling of Leaves. Okay, somebody's got a mind of its own there. All right, you ready? Here we go. Watch the screens. It was her first year, and everything was going well. The first leaf fell. Are you okay? She wondered. And then a red one fell, and a yellow one. All over her island, leaves were falling. She tried to catch them and put them back on the trees, but it was not the same. She sat beneath the trees and watched them go all around. But she grew sleepy, and so she found a hole, filled it with leaves, and went to sleep. I heard somebody say just a minute ago they wanted to take a nap after singing Sister Sledge Song. Okay, filled it with leaves and went to sleep, just as the wind began to blow. Okay, here comes the winter part, so remember the snow. Winter came. She slept snug in the ground while the snow piled around. It says thick, but I change it to around. In spring, with wide eyes, she woke. She felt the sun, saw little buds on the trees and tiny leaves that had begun to unfold. "Welcome," she cried, and she thought the leaves welcomed her too. So we're not going to sing the children out because they're going outside to play because most of the RE people are on the camping trip. So, but we're going to exit. How are we going to do this? We're going to go up and out that way.
I don't know. Should we go ahead and...
Or you can, oh no, they're going to
We
stay.
can go ahead and sing. We don't have the slides up, but if you know the words, come on and sing along with us, and we'll go ahead and sing them out. Here we go. One more step. And one more step. We will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word. One more word. We will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word.
Our opening words today come from Leading Congregations in Worship, a guide. Our many paths come together in this special place. Let us be mindful of forces deep within which call us to become more than we are. May this hour bring rest and renewal, comfort and challenge. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. And may we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but that we are connected in mystery and in miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Today's responsive reading is adapted from Simple Truths, Embracing the Mystery by Kent Nerburn. This life is not easy. Much of its mystery is darkness. In living, we take the lives of other species, and we leave cherished brothers and sisters by the side of the road. If we have played our part well, offering love where it is needed, strength and caring where it was lacking, if we have tended the earth and its creatures with a sense of humble stewardship, we will have done enough. Though our moment is brief and our part small, somewhere in the fullness of time, our acts will bear fruit. The earth will be a little better for our having been. Please welcome Reverend Taheri.
Thank you, Steve, for your leadership. And good morning, good people. Please let me know if I need to talk louder. I know that I tend to slow down. And
put the microphone a little closer to your...
How about that?
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
Perfect. I want to begin with a personal anecdote. And I warn you that at first it might sound like a tasteless joke along the lines of a Catholic, a Buddhist, and a Unitarian Universalist walked into an emergency room. But the story is true, and it marked a crucial moment in my own faith and ministry. I was serving as a hospital chaplain and was called to the emergency room one early in the morning, where a 59-year-old woman lay dying. Her husband, her son, and her sister were all gathered there. And they all had urgent but starkly different needs, spiritual needs. Her husband, a Buddhist, wanted me to take action in order to ward off the bad omen associated with number 59, as his wife, the patient, had just turned 59. Her Catholic son wanted me to call for a priest to do and administer the last rites. And since it was the Easter season, her sister, a Seventh-day Adventist, wanted me to do prayer for her sister's resurrection. Meantime, the woman's doctor, a Hindu man, was working to convince her family that all the things that could be done medically were done, and they needed to make a decision to withdraw the life support. I remember how helpless I felt that early morning in emergency room. I couldn't fathom how I was supposed to meet such different but genuine spiritual needs. I couldn't connect with the multiplicity of families' needs. I could only connect with my own Unitarian Universalist beliefs, which raised more questions than they answer. For example, why am I here? What do people yearn for when they are facing losing a loved one? What unites us, what unifies us in times of crisis? I thought to myself at that time, perhaps what the family most needs at that time was a compassionate affirmation of their pain and anger, of their longings. Maybe that would allow them to find some peace and to focus on the essential things at hand. So I asked the group to hold hands and gather in a circle, and I prayed aloud. I affirmed the anguish we were experiencing. I acknowledged how difficult it was to accept such terrible loss. I prayed for peace during times of hardship. I asked God to grant us the strength to accept what was happening and the willingness to lean on each other's love and compassion. I asked them to breathe in the sorrow of the moment in and to breathe it out together. I invited them to find some comfort in each other's presence and in the shared nature of their grief, although their hopes were different from each other. As we prayed, the tension began to cease. There were a few seconds of silence. Then the patient's husband spoke to the doctor through his tears and asked him to remove the breathing tube. Later that day, I began to meditate that how in times of hardship, if we focus on certain urgent needs, often others tend to fall away. Maybe it was because I was in a medical setting, but the term that came to my mind was apoptosis. Apoptosis in Greek means falling leaves. It is a medical term applied to a healthy form of cell death that transpires all the time. Necrosis is the term used to the cell death due to trauma and illness. But apoptosis is a process by which some cells die off. They fall off like falling leaves in autumn in order to maintain the health and integrity of bodily tissue. It is a continuous process of death within life. Dr. Meberach, in an article named Apoptosis, speaks about it in these terms. He says, our immune system has a highly sophisticated army which is activated to fight invaders when a bacteria enters into our system. After an invading bacteria is defeated, these activated cells carrying biological weapons become potentially dangerous to our system. Therefore, our immune system orders them to die for the sake of the whole system. These cells undergo apoptosis, but right before they die, they send a message to the resting cells. They tell them, the fight is about to be over. Do not respond to further stimulus. Keep the tension low. The cells that rise to fight the invading bacteria are not actually the surviving ones. They die away, allowing the others to survive in a more harmonious balance. As a congregation, you have made the wonderful choice to spend the month of October focusing on issues of racial and economic justice. By beginning with this story, this kind of medical parable of sorts, I am by no means to avoid the matter at hand. But I want to consider the many struggles for justice, equality, for meaning, for fairness in another light, an inevitable light, the light that enters with the understanding that we are all at this very moment in active process of dying. As humans, we embody the concepts of living and dying at once. Each day, millions of cells die away within our bodies to make the physiological balance of life possible. Each of us, as an integrated being, will experience birth, life, dying, death. Spiritually speaking, we struggle to make meaning out of death or other life experiences to bring a deeper meaning, a balance and harmony into our own life experiences. This phenomena, these poles of existence, are locked in a constant embrace, in a constant form of interaction. They give shape to one another. It seems simple almost. The idea that life is affirmed by the knowledge that we are dying, that life spiring anew constantly from the very process of death. It's a clarifying truth. But then I look around us and I wonder how we can hold on to this beautiful truth, how we can hold on to this very beautiful clarifying truth of life embraced with death, of the balance and dynamism between them, when all around us there are so many crises, so many struggles that overwhelm the possibility of survival. There are, to be sure, the moments of sweetness. For example, we just recently celebrated the Coming Out Day, the triumph for GLBTQI community, and the marriage equality recently in Hawaii, thanks to you guys. But these are all for the moments that we feel strong, that love always wins. Still, the news of injustices come in. The news of inhumanity bombards us from every corner. The specter of nations closing their doors, even as immigrants, risked life and limb to approach their shore and borders. The specter of teachers and police who would kill the joy and enthusiasm of a child for having the skill to build a homemade clock. School shootings, peace rally bombings, all the injustices brought by humans against humans based on their names, their race, their religion, their gender, their sexual, mental, or spiritual orientations. All these injustices brought against Mother Earth on a global level. How do we, as Unitarian Universalists, respond to the immense, intense, vital needs that grab our attention? How do we answer many pressing cries for help around us? And how do we do this when so many of us are struggling with personal hardships? How many of us today are having to think about our fragile health or providing care for a loved one? How many of us are searching for a job, are trying to make ends meet, are going through divorce or separation, facing the prospect of putting a parent in a long-term care? How many of us today are feeling sad, tired, underappreciated, misunderstood, abandoned? And how do we address these pressing personal needs while we are surrounded by the social justice issues? How horribly hard it is to be a decent human being at the end of the day and not an indifferent one. It is truly hard to be human. We must constantly struggle to make meaning of life events as well as the social ones. What an exhausting list. And we need energy for that. Where do we get the strength? Where do we get the hope to see all these challenges and more to come tomorrow? When I began my personal search for meaning, I was tied to a worldview that would not let me see beyond the universe of dichotomy and oppositions, good or bad, white or black, with me or without me, friend or foe. But eventually, life helped me to humble myself. And I broke open to the seed of the wisdom of different faith traditions and other human beings. I learned that by leaning upon the experience of others, I was able to feel a little bit more rested. When I understood that I could accept and confess to my own limits and see others with the same limits, yet still in action, I was able to learn from them and feel more relaxed as a cell in the organism of human community. And that taught me to see that how hope is born anew within oppression, how joy arises within grief, how life persists as part of death, not despite it. The wisdom of multiple faith traditions expanded my perception that took me beyond a binary vision until I could see and sense a sacred, multidimensional body. And over, each tradition on their own way pushed and exhorted me to see how it is that death gives birth not only to life, but a wise and just life. Psalm number 90:12 says, "Teach us the numbers of our days, that we may apply our hearts to wisdom." Sufi teachings encourage us daily to contemplate on our own death so we can subordinate our egos to a higher good. And when doubts rise from seeing so many cruel events around me, I take comfort and calmness in Krishna's words when Krishna comforts the warrior Arjuna who has a moment of doubt in fighting. And Krishna tells Arjuna that the contacts of matter, in other words, the experience with the material world that give cold and heat, pain and pleasure, they come and go, impermanent. Endure them bravely. The unreal has no being, and the real never ceases to be. Therefore, fight, O brother. Finally, Unitarian Universalism invites our attention to the interdependent web of living. Unitarian Universalism opens us to accept and listen to our own reason and intuition that works like a liberation, force of liberation, and gives us the ability to see that maybe the opposites are not opposites at all. Maybe the difference doesn't mean contradiction. Maybe between all points of opposition, there is a point of reconciliation, only if we are able to find it. Then we would see opposition of life and death, health and sickness, good or right, good or wrong. They are walking like legs. We need them to be able to walk, to go forward, to grow. The powerful heresy of Unitarian Universalism invites us to become more fully open to our own intuition. And it gives us the strength, the courage, to look at questions such as, can we face our own inevitable life differently once we understand that the death is part of life? Reminding us to contemplate and act right now and here on the things that really matter, letting go of other things to fall away. Margaret Fuller once said, "Suppose I went away now, the measure of my footprints would be left on earth." How will we leave our footprints on this earth? like trees letting go of their leaves, like our own very bodies letting go of cells that have served their purposes? Will we be able to let go of what is not needed anymore and focus on what really is? How do we as a congregation pick up a worthy fight to address the ills of the world? Allow me to finish with this short Zen Buddhist story. Master Taji was offered a piece of rice cake on his deathbed. As a sign of appreciation, he slowly nibbled at it. As the moments passed by, Master grew weaker. One of his students asked Master Taji if he had any departing words. He said, yes. My, this rice cake is delicious. May we all come to fully embrace the extraordinary experience of being alive. May we come to deep understanding that how limited we are in our existence as human beings and how hard it is to be human being. Therefore, we come and approach each other and touch each other's lives with more compassion, patience, and love each day. May we learn to live until we die. Amen.